Hello and welcome to the Mind Body Soil podcast, a podcast where we explore the innate connection between the mind, the body and the soil. This podcast is proudly brought to you by Smartsoil. Smartsoil is an online education platform creating courses and providing resources from farmers for farmers. Join us as we share the stories and experiences from those dedicated to regenerating ecosystems, communities and human beings. This week on the Mind Body Soil podcast, we are joined by Jake Wolki from Wolki Farm over in Albury, is it? In Albury, Wodonga?
That's right. Not Wodonga.
Not Wodonga. All right.
No, we detach ourselves from Victoria. We've got nothing to do with Victoria. We're on the New South Wales side of the river.
Yeah, independent. I love it. That's my partner's fault. She was on the base there for a while, so she always calls it Wodonga. Mate, so grateful that you're here with us today. Really excited to dive into this conversation and been following your stuff on socials. I don't know if you want to just give them a little prompt on where they can find you on the social platforms.
Well, look, we're everywhere basically. I've used to be very active on Facebook under Wolki Farm. Still post a bit there. I'm probably a bit more active on Twitter now at Jake Wolki. Heaps of info on our website, wolkifarm.com.au. But yeah, Twitter's where all the spicy stuff is because my family's not watching me there, so I can speak a little bit more freely.
I love that, mate. Love it. I really encourage you to go check that out. He's he really shares a lot of valuable information, especially on that Twitter. He's got his own space on there, so you can subscribe and go along for the journey on his amazing farm out there, mate. Which I hope we can unpack today and really zoom in on what you're doing out there because it's pretty bloody awesome. So I like to start, Jake, just with a little bit of context, and we'll paint a bit of a picture on how you got to where you're at. I know you're a young bloke, so just could you recall something really impactful from your journey that's sort of, lit the flame or sparked this new way of farming for you, or have you always done it like this?
Well, I was born in suburbia, so Albury's not a huge town. When I was born, it was probably 40,000 people, but my family had a 800-meter town block and caught the bus to school and just did all that normal stuff. And farmers to me were always like my family never really spoke about them. It wasn't a pejorative or anything, but it was never really anything to aspire to. Slow talking guys in rusty utes, it wasn't romanticized for me at all. I remember in high school, the careers teacher coming in saying, "What do you want to do?" And my family, since my grandpa came to Australia from Germany, a bit over 60 years ago, my family's always been retailer, bricks and mortar retail stores, a string of different, from laundromats to CD shops to basketball card shops to fast food chicken restaurants. We've done a lot of different things. And the careers teacher said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to go work for my dad." And they did not like, I thought, get some experience with dad and then do what we do. We're merchants, essentially. And I still consider myself a merchant because I'm selling direct to consumer. I'm still a trader. And she did not like that answer at all. And she said, "Well, what are you passionate about?" I said, "Working with dad in selling stuff." "Well, what else do you like apart from working with your dad?" I said, "I really like animals." "Why don't you be a vet?" No discussion about being a farmer. There was nothing else revolved around animals except for higher education and veterinary science. I came home and told dad, I think it was his year 8 or 9, the career teachers, wanted me to run this experiment while I'm fleshing out the idea of being a vet. Dad said, "Why do you want to be a vet?" I said, "Well, I told him I love animals." He said, "Oh, so you want to be around sick animals all day, putting dogs to sleep?" I thought, yeah, that's a great point, just around sick, dying animals all the time. So I went back to school and I said, "I don't like the idea of being a vet anymore." And I recall this story because no one ever said, "Well, if you don't want to be around sick animals, why don't you be around healthy animals and go farm? Why don't you put some sheep in a paddock? Why don't you think about growing some chickens or whatever?" And it was never even a conversation. And, fast forward years and years later, I've been on a bit of a health journey. I've had a lot of allergies, skin allergies, respiratory allergies that I've battled with my whole life. My family used to take me to Melbourne all the time to go see specialists to give me the latest drug or the latest treatment. And my allergies and symptoms kept getting worse and worse and worse. And my beautiful wife, Anne, tapped me on the shoulder 5 or 6 years ago and said, "Enough's enough. Like we really need to address your diet." Because I was drinking a lot of iced break, iced coffee, a lot of satay noodle combinations from the local Chinese shop. Just an absolutely woeful, but probably fairly typical suburban Western diet. And I went down this mad food rabbit hole. And, 4 years later, here we are. Really, everything we built here it was started just to grow up for our own family. And then we've become really passionate about it. And we've seen it to be the answer of a lot of our concerns. I've always been a real, I guess I've been an aspiring welfare advocate. And I figured out that if you treat animals really well, the environment responds really well, and you have really high quality food that can heal people. So there's just so many different facets of. So yeah, we came here chasing good food, really.
Yeah, and could you place us a little bit geographically of where your place is, and describe a little bit about the enterprise and how it's sort of evolved?
Well, Albury's on the Hume Highway, in the middle, between Canberra and Melbourne. And so down behind me, this is a video of my main lease block. I lease 3 different blocks. They're 100 acres each. This lease block is off my parents. And this is only 10 minutes to town in Albury. And this tree line you can see in the distance behind me, for the people that are watching, is actually the trees along the banks of the Murray River. So we're on river flats here, which is, fantastic because lots of water and very fertile. And, we're getting bogged a lot. It's been so wet the last few years that we're getting bogged a lot. But, we have really hot summers. I've temperature recorded days, 47 degrees at the weather station, let alone, if you take your temperature probe out and try to find what bare earth is doing, you're looking in the mid 50s. And then in winter, we have a handful of frosts that hit as low as -3. So that's Celsius, obviously. So we get a good range of weather, but I really enjoy it. We sort of get to carry the mantelpiece through all 4 seasons, which gives you a chance to expand your wardrobe a little bit and test out the body's immune system.
Yeah, fascinating, mate. Just to go back to that healing journey a little bit. So, when you started your elimination, I guess, of well, I guess shit food, and then started trying to focus on more nutrient dense stuff, how did that sort of play out? Was it someone telling you what to eat, or were you just listening to the missus and saying, well, maybe I should be eating, more nutrient dense, fresher, raw foods, or what did that look like?
Well, there was really a few things happening at once. One thing that was happening on the side was my wife and I had just had our first son, Otto. That was about 6 years ago, and I was spending more time at home. Like there was less. You become a little bit less social. You're not out with the boys as much, or you're bunkered down home a little bit. So I took an interest in gardening. We've got a small suburban house in town that we live in. And I really got interested in the idea of organic gardening. And I was on YouTube looking up no-till organic gardening and sort of starting to understand that not all foods are equal. A carrot's not a carrot, not a carrot. There's a lot of variations on what a carrot is and can be. And if that's something that you even want to be eating in the first place. And then on the other side, that was sort of separate to our food healing journey. That was more of a hobby that sort of spiraled out of control into colliding with this, I guess, paradigm. My wife was, because my wife's a lot healthier person than and I am, and especially I was. And she was like, you just have to stop eating this crap. Like, it wasn't about having the perfect diet, eating organic, all this. But like I said, it was just chocolate and chips and KFC and Chinese noodle box and flavored milks and, just a lot of rubbish. So the start of the journey was just eat less bad. Like, don't even eat good, just eat less bad. But at the same time, I was really interested in gardening, and it was a real rabbit hole I was going down. And I ended up finding these no-till guys, and then on you stack on top of that organic. And I actually, through the YouTube rabbit hole, ended up stumbling across the Joel Salatin video while researching gardening, which was my first exposure into stacked enterprise, regen farming. And just from a business point of view, I own a few different businesses. I've been involved in a few different industries. It just really grabbed me. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. You mean I can raise chickens and pigs on the same land that I can raise cattle on? I just thought that was such a cool idea.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. And so fast forward a little bit to what you have implemented out of that Salatin inspiration. Let's see, you've got pigs on there. You got your chicken. I can see your chicken tunnels in the background there. So you can just run us through your main enterprises on the farm at the moment, or farms, and yeah, how that's, where you started and how it sort of evolved.
Well, it started with, saying to dad, this is a 100-acre property, pretty close to town, but it's a hobby block. In this street, everyone else that has 100 acres has horses on it. Yeah. And the boys cut in a motocross track, nice motocross track down the road here. They're hobby blocks. They're all owned by doctors. So this is just, dad's bought 40 steers a year and pushed them around between 5 paddocks, and then opened the gates to let them have run of the whole place when all the feed runs out, like real standard, drench them twice a year, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And I said, can I take your mob of cattle and move them around quicker using some temporary fencing? And then I'm going to put a caravan with chickens behind them. And I stole my dad. He had 30 chickens, and I flogged all his chickens, and I put them in this caravan. And it was a complete caravan. Like, it wasn't open floored or anything. I busted open a bale of hay in the bottom. I tech screwed milk crates to the wall for them to nest their eggs into. I hauled water out to them every day. And I started chasing these 20 Hereford heifers around the farm with these 30 laying hens in this caravan. And geez, it was a lot of, like, it would have been 2 to 3 hours a day managing those chores, because the systems were so poor, and I was learning as I went. And the idea was that I was going to process one of the bodies of beef for my wife and I to eat at home, because we wanted that grass-fed beef that hadn't been drenched, and eat a few eggs as well. And that was in start of 2019. So if you fast forward to today, we've got mobs of cattle on 3 properties. So this property behind me here is where we keep the breeders. There's about 45 breeders at the moment, cows. And then we got weaners and some dairy cattle at other properties that we fatten up for the meat market. We do broilers, which the viewers can see these 2 tunnels. These are prairie schooners, I'm calling them, that I'm prototyping. There's not many people in Australia doing them, and I'm trying to get away from wheels, and I'm trying to automate that enterprise as best as I can, so we're not very labor dependent. We do egg layers. So there's another eggmobile you can see over my other shoulder. We've got about 1,000 hens on the farm. We're on track to do about 300 plus pigs this year. We have a few beehives, about 30 beehives, and we've got lambs as well. They're in frame here, but you won't be able to make them out, but they're right over the side there. We've got about 70 ewes, and they're about halfway through lambing at the moment.
Wow, mate, what an evolution, and quite quick. That's incredible. Did you have any trouble adapting any of the systems, from that North American sort of context to this to where you are there?
Yeah, definitely, because everyone that I was watching had infrastructure, this portable, mobile, scalable infrastructure concept, which I love. It was all optimized for a snowy winter, and their summers really mimic our springs a lot of the time. They don't get quite as dry, and we don't have any humidity here. It's just hot and dry, right? Yeah. So, for instance, our eggmobiles that we carry our layers in are a copy of Richard Perkins' eggmobile designs, but they're insulated differently. I've built airflow differently. We've had to open up the sides for airflow. Instead of being able to overwinter the birds outside, we've had to figure out how to oversummer them, because winter here is easy. When you got 300 or 400 hens in a mobile coop overnight, they heat themselves quite nicely. So yeah, there's been a few iterations. I'm trying to get away from human power. Like, you hear Richard Perkins and Joel Salatin spruik a lot about, the chicken tractors, you can drag them by hand, so you don't need to fire up a depreciating asset, which I love the idea of that. But I'm trying to get away from human power, because innovate structures that facilitate that, because labor is a huge expense. Our labor laws in Australia are quite different to what Joel uses over there. So I've met Joel, and I've gone to some of Joel Salatin's courses, and some of the ways he sets up his employment and things, which is great, and it really puts a lot of initiative on the staff, you just flat out can't do here. You'll get in a lot of trouble if you try to copy that. But I'm also trying to get away from firing up a tractor. My tractor is written off at the moment, so I knackered it, and we're not going to replace it. We're not going to fix it. I need to replace it, but I'm actually thinking, it's been about 3 months we haven't had it. and it's been a bit of a dogfight, to be completely frank with you, especially with how muddy it's been.
Yeah.
But we're making do, and I'm getting, like, for instance, these prairie schooners behind me, we're burying anchors in the ground and setting up automotive winches and battery banks, and we're moving them by winches. And I'm in the process of gearing those winches down and setting them on timers so they can move a meter a minute, 6 times a day, every couple of hours throughout the day. And they should be able to move with no labor at all. So
Wow.
theoretically, I could have them moving twice a day with no labor, gear them down so slow that birds don't get crushed. So it's been really frustrating not having a tractor, but innovation's born out of necessity. And, just to get rid of that labor cost, which is expensive, is going to be a great thing for the balance sheet. And we can redirect that labor to better things like building new infrastructure and new systems and expanding instead of maintaining and managing.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. I haven't heard of anyone doing the anchor winch thing. That's pretty cool.
Well, I didn't think about, like, I was just completely desperate. The using a winch on a vehicle, the vehicle wasn't heavy enough, and then I'd have to turn the vehicle on the side, and then it wasn't spooling properly. And so I tried to put a weight in the paddock to tie the winch to, but then I had to figure out how to get the weights in the paddock without a tractor. And so I just ended up getting a 2-meter long scrap piece of, like, 100 by 100 steel out of the shed, digging a hole 50 centimeters deep and burying it. You see guys 4-wheel driving, and if they need a winch themselves out, there's nothing to attach their winch to. They dig a hole and put their spare wheel in it. So I just did that. So now I can go along and every 16 meters, because that's how wide my structures are, that's how long they are. We move sideways, not lengthways, because it's a shorter move. You can move your whole unit by going 6 meters instead of 16. We just bury an anchor every 16 meters down the paddock, and we can just move it by a winch.
Mate, that's so cool. Fuck yeah, man. That's and you're doing some really cool stuff with genetics as well, hey? In the cattle realm. So I'm not in Goonie cattle, I believe. But if we want to go down that rabbit hole just now, or we can up to you.
Happy to. Well, yeah, well, we've got 5 pillars of production on the farm that, it's our flywheel. They're our values, and they're our values that we return to be our guiding principles when we're decision making on the farm. And the very first one is animal welfare. And animal welfare to me means a different thing to what it means to a lot of other people. I know people that think that their pet dog at home is afforded brilliant animal welfare because they keep the food bowl topped up with kibble all the time. And I just think of that as being atrocious animal welfare, because for starters, dogs don't eat kibble. If you read the back of the bag of kibble from the pet store, generally 4 out of the first 5 ingredients will be refined carbohydrates, which isn't suitable for dogs' intestines. They're hypercarnivores. It's like an 80% meat diet, and the rest of the stuff that's not meat might be fermented foods from the intestinal tracts or some berries on the ground or something. So I just think that that's a nonsense. And then dogs just don't need limitless food available. They just get fat. It's not what is it. So I just don't look at that. For me, really good welfare for your dog would be feeding them a meat-based diet and feeding them 6 meals a week, skipping them through a intermittent fast one day a week. And that's what I do with my dogs. I breed dogs as well. I import standard schnauzers and breed them for the pet market. But that's an idea of animal welfare. So for me, but to leverage animals in their and give them the appropriate welfare as to what their nature demands, you have to have an animal that's fit for purpose. So another example, and I haven't forgotten your question about Nguni, but another example is pigs deserve to be outside. They're not shed-dwelling animals. They haven't evolved. They haven't been created. They haven't decided one day. They didn't create a union that we want to be in sheds. They're forest-dwelling animals. They're omnivores. They're social. And we put them in these concrete stalls because we can make things cheaper. And it's not the right thing for the animals. But then on the flip side, if you want to give the animal that species appropriate experience on your farm, you can't take the animal that's been bred for the sheds over the last 50, 60 years, because they're not going to hack it in the farm. You saw during COVID, all these pig factory farms in America having to get rid of all their pigs because the abattoirs were shut down. So they were just gassing pigs, and one abattoir actually had one pig factory actually had footage leak where they stuffed all the vents and turned the temperature up and sweated all their pigs to death because it was cheaper than gassing them and shooting them or whatever, because they couldn't get into the slaughterhouse. So a lot of these factory farms also just gave these pigs away. And I just remember watching with real interest on all these pig forums and Facebook groups and Twitter threads, all these farmers that were going and picking up these free pink pigs, and they couldn't hack it outside. They were falling over. They were becoming dippity pigs. They couldn't handle the heat. They couldn't handle the diet. They couldn't handle it. You need Berkshires. You need Wessex saddlebacks. You need Durocs. You need these old hardy heritage breeds that are fit for purpose. I love talking about fit for purpose genetics all the time. So when we're talking about ruminants like a cattle, I don't want to be pulling calves. If the genetics of the breed predisposes them to having really big calves because they've been selected for large weaning weights, and so you've got to really baby your heifers, your mums that are having babies for the first time. I just see that as being completely unfair to the animal and the farmer. Why not select an animal that doesn't need that help? And so the Nguni breed, which is a South African breed that I've come across, they're so resilient and robust. They're disease resistant. They're parasite resistant. They're highly fertile. They're easy calving. You know, a lot of them are having their first calves at 16, 17 months old, which is when most farmers are joining their cattle for the first time. You know, the calves aren't going to come until the animal hits 2 years of old. So they've got so many traits and things, but the reason we ended up with them is I really believe that they're an animal that's fit for purpose because they haven't been selectively bred to, you know, fit our construct of what a cow should be.
Yeah, man, that's so cool. Really, got the noggin jogging about the fit for purpose with the genetics that we choose, because you're so right. Like everything is so geared towards mass production and not necessarily in the interest, like you say, of the animal welfare. So could you run us through your other 5 guiding principles? So you have your animal welfare. What are your other 4 on the farm?
Animal welfare is number 1, and it has to be number 1 because all the other ones feed off it. And animal welfare, just to reiterate, is all about having fit for purpose animals that are in species appropriate environments. So outside, for starters, for the species appropriate diet, ruminants eating herbivore ruminants eating grass and not grain, that sort of thing. Number 2 is we call it our environmental backbone. We love the environment. I'm not a bleeding heart greenie. I wasn't raised in a particularly greenie household, worried about what went in what bin and all this sort of things. But as we've been on our farming journey, like I absolutely love the land that I farm. I love our country, and I've traveled a lot. And everywhere I go, like landscapes. I was thinking the other day that all my best memories from when I was a child were outside. I can't tell you one fantastic memory, even throughout my whole life, to be honest. I can't think of one great memory where I was sitting inside doing something. They were all outdoors. You know, we're designed to be outdoors. We love it outdoors. So we really need to look after our environment. And if you look after the environment well, it's actually more productive, which from a businessman's point of view is so exciting. So we call it our environmental backbone because sometimes you just need to grow a spine and do the job. So if you move your cattle every day, part of your holistic grazing plan, but it's raining, you need a growl pair and go and move them anyway because the animals are waiting for it, you know? Or sometimes I just come home absolutely covered in mud because it was hard to move the pigs because it was too wet. You know, it just is what it is. Step number 3 is healing food. We want to produce healing food for our community and our customers at Wolki Farm. And I believe if you start with fit for purpose animals and show them top tiered welfare, by definition, you're going to be looking after the environment. You know, if you're showing your cow high level welfare, you're moving them all the time because that mimics their natural expression. If you're moving your cows all the time to look after the animal health, your environment is going to respond really well because it's getting long recovery periods and it's getting concentrated manure and animal impact when they're there. So you've got great environmental outcomes. And if you've got great welfare and great environmental outcomes, by proxy, you're not going to be a drug addict on your farm. You're not going to be worried about these drenches and supers and fertilizers, and your food that you're going to be producing is going to be fantastic. So it's a byproduct. It's not a goal. It's a byproduct, which is just incredible. So step 3 is creating healing food. Step 4 is building community. You know, we don't want transactional relationships. We want long-term relationships. I like knowing the names of my customers, and that might not be scalable forever, but it is really good having that feedback. We run a lot of community events on the farm. We do a lot of tours. We hold a lot of workshops. So having community is really important to us. And again, that flywheel concept, if you're pioneering welfare, environmental practices and creating good product, of course, you're going to have a community. They're going to want to be involved. And step number 4 is we want to be profitable, and we want to be, we want to pave a bit of a way or be as open with our business practices as we can be to help other people that are getting going. We don't always get it right. I'm not creating millions off this farm yet, but to be open with our books, and I've shared quite a lot online about the economics of my butchery and different ideas I've had of how I've made enterprises tweak and work. And I'm not worried about copycats or copyright or any of that. We're really sort of wanting to wear our heart on our sleeve with all that sort of thing. And then if you get to the end of the flywheel and you make profit, then you can reinvest, and all the 5 principles just self-perpetuate and gain momentum.
Mate, that's really cool. And they're all synergistic in like you say, like they breed the next step in that pillar of success. That's amazing. So how are you going to be using the Nguni cattle out there, and where are you at with it? So I believe that from following your socials, you've packed the first order of Nguni beef in Australia,
Yes.
perhaps. So that's a pat on the back,
Yep.
mate. Good stuff. So
Yeah,
where are you
thank
at,
you.
and what's next?
So Nguni is a bit of a slow burn because in Australia, they're said to be less than 250 purebred animals. The genetics that have come in from South Africa are quite thin, and we can't get any more genetics over because of foot and mouth risk. All that genetic trading with South Africa has been shut down now. So I've got 2 purebred cows. I've got a little heifer calf, and I think I've got 5 or 6 purebred bulls now. So what we're doing is we do have a couple purebred animals that are dear to us, but we're mainly breeding up. So we're using our bulls over my pre-existing herd before I got involved in the Nguni was some shorthorns. So I'm putting my Nguni bulls over my shorthorn cows, and then the baby's a first cross.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you breed that heifer to an Nguni bull, you get a second cross. And if you do that for 5 steps and you end up with a 5th cross, you're basically back to purebred status. Your genetic material from Nguni will be 98%, essentially. Because the first cross is 50-50. Second cross is 75-25. Third cross is 87.5. You get the picture. So
Yes.
You keep breeding those traits more in. So we're grading up, that's called. And I'm also purchasing Jersey choppers, the industry calls them. So they're retired milking cows that the dairies are culling for a range of reasons. We get them because of infertility. They've missed an AI session, the artificial insemination. We buy them pretty cheap. We bought the Nguni bull over that, and we keep the progeny, and we grade up on them as well. And I love doing that because Jerseys are a great animal, in my opinion. And they've got a lot of, even though they're a very different animal to the Nguni because they've been optimized for milk for so long, they've actually got a lot of similar traits. They're still a small framed animal. They're very fertile. They produce a lot of milk, and they've got Jerseys have an absolutely sensational top tier meat quality. It is almost untouchable in my opinion. So I'm really excited about that grading up program. So we're just leveraging the bull genetics that we have a lot, and we are wanting to do nutritional testing on the beef as it comes available to us, and be able to market to people, because I don't have any much quantifiable proof yet, but I've got this hunch that the Nguni is going to have an edge in terms of its nutritional capacity with how many nutrients it can deliver to humans, based on the fact of how vigorous the animal is and how healthy the animal is. If you're eating a sick, diseased tomato, there's less in it for you. It's rotten. Your body's going to have to fight against it a little bit. And just by proxy of how vigorous these animals are, I just have this inkling that they're going to be a remarkable animal. So we're working with some doctors in Australia, like Dr. Max Goldhain, Dr. Pran Yoganathan, Anthony Chafee, like some of these bigger names, Dr. Jalal Khan, that are really interested in what we're doing here on the farm. And when we start getting this data available, they're wanting to help us push that message forward of, better beef.
Amazing. Really good segue, I guess, into working with those doctors, because that's what really, got me excited about when I saw that you were hanging out with Dr. Pran and Jalal, and it's just beautiful to see, you know, the doctors are taking interest in what the farmers are doing finally. So could you talk a little bit about how that's come about, and then what your sort of goals are, and perhaps this would be a good time to bring up Regenerate, the conference you guys are running, and yeah, just interested to unpack that a little bit.
Well, I fell in with the doctors first by doing my farm tours. You know, the best marketing thing that we've ever done, you know, up until 3 months ago, I could have told you that I've never spent a cent on marketing, but we do now. We're playing with AdWords and these sorts of things. But the best marketing plan we've ever had is just extreme transparency, and we facilitate that through social media and farm tours. And I did one farm tour, you know, a long time ago, and a doctor came on the property and really enjoyed it. And I don't even know if we connected on that tour, but I got an email off him. He said, I was on your tour. He's a carnivore doctor. He's local GP. His name's Rob Zabo, Dr. Rob Zabo. And he said, could I come on another private farm tour and bring 2 doctor friends of mine? I said, yeah, no problems. I was tickled pink to have a couple. I'm a high school dropout. to have a couple doctors that want to come and experience what we're building on the farm here was really exciting to me. So we had the doctors on and had a great tour. And this was sort of the middle of lockdowns, I want to say. So it was really nice to have some health professionals that I could relate to out in the paddock, not wearing masks and whatever else.
Yeah.
And we've just all fallen in together because these doctors are really, they're really wanting to nurture their clients and get them to build health and, you know, take them on a journey. Don't come and see me for pill popping. Let's address the causes. You know, yes, you've got type 2 diabetes, but you eat, you know, so many highly processed carbohydrates and sugar foods that, you know, it's almost inevitable. So let's look at your diet. Let's look at your sun exposure. Let's look at your exercise, and, you know, we'll give you the meds in the interim, but let's get you back on this path over here. And that was just music to my ears. And they're really getting deep as well. Same thing. It's not just about the exercise and the diet, but it's like, you know, it's not just eating red meat, but it's like, what is the red meat you're eating? You know, they're all geeking out on it because the doctors, they spend too much time reading stuff. So, you know, they almost can't get enough of it, which is really exciting. Like they're I don't know, they're almost more passionate than I'm about it because they just live and see it and they get to see the results. Like I hear testimonials and things, but I don't do sit down consults with people that are at their wits end because they're medicated and sick and fed up. They sit down with these people that are really struggling and give them some really basic guidelines and principles to, you know, change their lifestyle with. And they get to see these people coming back. Like I hear from these doctors all the time that they're getting clients off insulin and other diabetic medication within weeks, just by adjusting their diet. You know, it's so exciting.
Right, that is cool. And the event coming up, you've got a big do happening, eh? And
yeah, so Dr. Max is organizing an event locally. It's this weekend, so I think it starts on Saturday this August. But yeah, we've got Dr. Max Golhane, Jalal Khan, Dr. Anthony Chafee, and myself. We're doing a farm tour. We're doing a shoulder rubbing dinner, and then we've got an all-day conference where we're all giving presentations. And I've started in social media for a while, you know, because it's Dr. Max, like Dr. Max coming, and then it's Dr. Khan and Dr. Chafee, and then it's Jake Wolki. So I started writing FR, so I'd have my own little nice accolade and title, and I'm like, I'm going to make FR a thing. And then I found out that it was father, as in a father of the faith. So I had to stop using FR. I need to come up with a better little title.
Oh mate, that's gold. Yeah, wish we could make it to that. I reckon it's going to be an absolute cracker, and I hope you do more of them. And
well,
best success.
It's essentially sold out. It's basically sold out. 150
awesome.
tickets, which is awesome. I'm running another event on our farm. November 4th, I think it is. It's called the Quantum Health Summit, and we've got Dr. Pran Yoganathan, Dr. Jalal Khan, again, myself, and we're still working on a few other guest appearances to come to that. You can buy tickets on wolkifarm.com.au, but it's going to be similar to this event, but we're hoping to go a bit deeper. You know, not as much surface area information, not as much, I guess, context and everything, but actually go real deep with people and give them real nitty gritty tools. Like if you're on your journey and you're thinking about sun exposure and water quality and all these things, when's the best time of day to be outside and expose yourself to sunshine? And does that change from summer to winter? And learning all these things. And, Dr. Jalal is going to bring an absolute war chest of material to that event. So we're really hoping to go really, really deep with believers who are wanting to equip themselves.
Mate, I'm down that rabbit hole at the moment and thoroughly enjoying it. It's great. And we actually have Dr. Jalal coming on the show the next couple of days. So
cool.
Pumped on that.
Great.
Yeah, cool, man. That's so cool. And I guess you're that generation of land stewards that we're trying to engage. I guess we're the future of agriculture in a sense. So I'm just interested to hear your thoughts on about how we get more young crew into farming and excited about it the way you are and that passion. Because it's infectious.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. My opinions on this are changing a little bit because I've been carrying the torch from the Salatin, and Joel Salatin's the godfather to me. Like I can't say enough good things about Joel Salatin, but I've been spruiking and sharing, save a bit of money, do a startup, scrap buy, lease some land, all this sort of stuff. And I've watched, just in the 4 or 5 years I've been doing this, so many farmers come and go. Like, to give you an idea, I purchased my butchery in 2020 with my wife to process our own animals, because that was a massive, processing was our biggest bottleneck. Still is, ironically, even though we own our own facility. And I immediately picked up 5 clients to custom process for. So local farmers that would consign their beef or lamb or pork to me, and I'd cut and package it, and they'd take it to the farmers market or IGA or a buying club in Melbourne, and they'd sell it on. And only one of them still processes with me. And when the 4 that came on board either shut their businesses down or sold out or retired or whatever they all did, I picked up another 5 or 6. They're all gone too. So I'm currently processing for, I used to say 12 or 13 local farms. I think it's down to 7 or 8 now, because no one can hack it. There's a lot of people starting up on a small block of land or leasing some land or, dad's block or whatever it might be, or taking the leap, and they aren't able to hang in there long enough to really have a go. And I'm not altogether sure why. It comes down to finances. I think most of us are coming into this from my perspective of how I've come in. I think we're coming in undercapitalized. And we're coming in undercapitalized for the growth trajectory that we're hoping and expecting. So you can come in undercapitalized and over years breed up your flock and hatch more chickens and farrow more piglets. But you can't come in undercapitalized and be expecting to take home $80,000 within 2 or 3 years for your family's lifestyle or whatever it is. So I think it's a little bit of, we don't have enough equity. And our expectations are a little bit too high. So I've got really high expectations, but I came in a little bit more capitalized. And I've been able to push the envelope a little bit harder than others. So I don't have that's a bit of a doomsday scenario that I've just given you there, really. But I didn't, it's such a noble, enjoyable thing to do, farming like this. Like I really love it, and I get upset watching these young fired up guns come in and then disappear again. And I think we need to have a bit of a conversation about balancing our expectations with the reality of the skills, the talents, and the capital that we have at our deployment when we come into the industry.
Yeah. And how much of that do you think is in the lacking those business skills? Because you obviously said you had a couple of businesses before, and you're obviously pretty well versed on that. You got good business acumen in that sense. So how important is that part, and to keep innovating and staying agile, I guess, like you have and created the butchery? And
well, it's enormous, and even for me, managing cash flow is a headache still, and I think it always will be, especially at the rate. I'm never happy with just waiting for the next lot of lambs to drop. I'm always buying more ewes. I can't wait for things to scale. But I think it's massive. In the last 4 years here, I think I've watched 5 egg farms, pasture-based egg farms, start and close within my short reign. And I've had and, all great people, and I knew all of them. We all collaborated, and they come on my farm tours. And I when I ran out of eggs, I sent people to them, all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But they're all selling their eggs too cheap. I know what it costs to produce eggs. I've got silos here that I get feed blown into. Most of these guys were buying eggs by the bulker bag, so buying grain by the bulker bag. So I knew they were paying 20-30% more than me, and they were retailing their eggs for the same price I was wholesaling my eggs. And I was the guy, he's too expensive and he's greedy and whatever it is, but I'm the one still standing because I understood the true cost of eggs. Yes. I think too many people just don't even understand how to run a simple profit and loss, or a simple budget or costings budget on what the actual goods are worth.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that comes from, I talk about this thing called a poverty mindset, but I think a lot of that comes from them being insecure about commanding what it's actually worth because of their own hang-ups. Like, I wouldn't pay $11 for eggs, so how can I charge someone else $11 for eggs? Yeah. I'm completely the opposite. If you can tell me why your eggs are so good, I'll pay $15 a dozen for them.
Yeah.
You can, my 3-year-old Theodore, he's nearly 3, I can hit his daily protein requirements for 2 eggs in the morning. That's his whole daily protein requirements. Everything he eats on top of that is a bonus. Yeah. So if I'm paying $1.50 per egg for an $18 dozen, which no one does, right? This is hyperbole. But why wouldn't you feed your child the daily protein requirements for $3? Right. It's just about having, I think you actually have to believe in what you're doing and actually value the product you're selling in the first place. Otherwise, you get gun shy about actually charging what it's worth.
Yeah, that's so valuable. I have a 3-year-old son named Theodore as well, mate. There you go.
Oh, cool. There you go. What's your boy's? Does your boy have a middle name?
Forrest.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
My Theodore's middle name is Jungle. And Otto, my firstborn son, his middle name's Forest.
Wow. Right.
And I just had a little girl, Esmeralda, and her middle name's Meadow. We're chasing landscapes.
Oh, it's so cool, man. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Mate, can we talk about the butchery a bit more and how that sort of was it born out of necessity again, or is it something that you just saw was an opportunity?
No, complete choke point. Had no interest when I started the farm in butchering or processing, and I was using local butchers. So, the animal goes off to the local abattoir and gets slaughtered, gets consigned back to a local boning room where they receive the carcass, cut it, package it, label it, you pick it up, you sell it. And there's good local butchers, and I approached a few of them and got some prices, and went with one that I felt like I had a good connection with, and, great guy. And he processed a few bodies of beef for me, and it was all good. And then a couple were tardy, like late. He said, you can pick it up Wednesday, and then it was Friday, and then it was Monday. And back then I was selling everything by the quarter. Now we do cuts almost exclusively because we just don't push quarters like that anymore. Mm-hmm. And that became really hard for me to communicate to people. You can pick it up Wednesday, or I'll deliver it Wednesday. Sorry, it won't be Wednesday, it'll be Friday. Sorry, it won't be Friday, it'll be Monday. And I'm going on holiday and I'm not going to be home. And it's just, so I need to store it. I don't have any storage because I don't own a facility. The butcher doesn't want to store it. And then the packaging and the labeling wasn't always as nice and tidy as I liked it to be. And then I wanted to do preservative-free bacon and things. And I had one butcher in town who told me I was going to kill people doing preservative-free and sort of cussed me out of the shop a bit. And then it became a real capacity thing. It was like, Jake, whoa, body of beef every 2 or 3 weeks. That's all we can handle. And I'm thinking, who's going to build a meaningful business to scale, meet the market, create a lifestyle for their family, selling 20 bodies of beef a year? I want to be doing 2,000 bodies of beef a year, not 20. So I thought this is never going to work. So we got online, and there was a freehold for a local butcher that had closed down for sale. We went and had a look at it. We made an offer on it. We bought that and settled on that pretty quickly, my wife and I. And we had to renovate it, get it going, put all the equipment in it. Had to hire a butcher. Had no idea what I was looking for when I interviewed and tested them out. Ended up finding a fantastic butcher who's still with me today. He's been with me, must be 3 years or so now. I've got 2 butchers in there now, and we offer that custom processing for other farmers, like I said. But massive growing journey. Didn't want to do it. We're having to relearn all this food intelligence. Like, how do you make synthetic nitrate-free bacon and whatever else? Well, plenty of people advertise they do it, but if you call them and ask them, they won't tell you. get on Google. There's not that much information. The way that we've done it is really old cookbooks and trial and error. And it, that sort of R&D is slow and painful and expensive. So we're sort of having to re-educate ourselves to what all of our great grandparents just knew by default in terms of those old skills. Yeah. And now we've got an automated retail section of the store as well. So I never wanted to set up a front display cabinet. I didn't have, like, to give you an idea, when we purchased the butchery, our projected revenue for that financial year, gross revenue from the farm, was like $400,000 or $450,000. And that was, everything was already selling out as soon as we processed it. So, like, you set up a front of house selling fresh cuts or whatever it might be. You've got to put a 50, 60 grand salary out there to scan the bags and smile at the people and serve them. Yeah. And even if I put all my sales through there, that 400 grand revenue didn't justify that extra $60,000 salary. And it was all pre-sold anyway. So there was no point to having a storefront. And I kept getting asked for it again and again. People were like, when's the store going to open? I went there to buy stuff and there was no one there and it looked empty. Like, what's going on? So I thought, this really, I'd like to open something just to meet the market. One of my big things is just give people what they want. And I thought it was never going to work with wages and my volume is too small anyway. So I thought I need to do a vending machine, and I was looking at different, like, literal hardware vending machines that you could, refrigerated vending machines you could buy, and people could, insert all their 20-cent pieces and click B2 and a pack of mints will fall out, but just extremely expensive to purchase and operate. And then one day I was just scratching down on the back of an envelope and I thought, what about a big walk-in vending machine where I could just botch a few bits of technology together? So the way it works is people come and do one of our farm tours. They get a code once they've done a farm tour to access the building. It's like a 24-hour gym where you can punch your 4-digit code in. Yep. And then you gain access to the building. There's all of our meats on display there, cryovac packed, labeled and hard frozen in glass door display freezers, so minus 20 degrees Celsius. They can grab everything they want. There's an app on the smartphone they use to scan all the barcodes, hit pay. It comes to us through their debit card on an online bank called Stripe. And then they check themselves out. And I've got security cameras in there for a bit of passive surveillance. And we've been doing that for almost 3 years now. And it just ticks along really nicely. We've had no issues with theft, no issues with people leaving freezer doors open, no issues with vandalism. It's just been a really sort of easy set and forget little store.
That's really cool. Is there any others like that in Australia, Jake?
No, and I went viral on TikTok. I don't know how long, it was September last year, so almost a year ago. I had a TikTok video I did about the butchery, get 1 million views almost, and then it went nuts on Twitter and it went berserk on Facebook. And in the course of a week, I did 40 media engagements. From the Today Show to all the FM and radio, AM radio stations to news.com to, just everything you could imagine, which was fantastic. Crashed my website again and again and again, just kept crashing under the pressure. Wow. And I had hundreds of people reach out to me saying, this is awesome. I'm going to do it. Can you give me the info? So I, wrote a little spiel on what technologies I use, how I set it up, how it works. And I just flicked it to everyone for free. This is exactly how I did it. Anyone that wanted a phone call, I had a phone call with them. A few people wanted to Zoom me. Like, I tipped dozens and dozens of hours into giving people all this information for free. And I got a phone call off one of the families. They're up in Queensland just last week. And they're just about to open. So it looks like all over actually, no, I lied. There's 2 people. There's what are they called? Longtail Farm. They're on Twitter. He's in America. He's just about to open doing a really similar thing. And then there's this one family up in Queensland that's just about to get going with it. So long story short, there's no one doing it yet, but I'm really, and I wish there was hundreds doing it, but I'm really happy that there's at least 2 people with the nuts to have a crack.
Good on you, mate. That's, do you think that is that thing again where, when things are free, people just don't value it in that sense?
I think a little bit. I also think a lot of them just got caught up in the hype and thought it was really nice. And, if you say you're going to do something, you get an immediate reward system from yourself. You give yourself a pat on the back because you said you're going to do something cool. And the person you're told probably gives you a pat on, oh, that's awesome, good job. And then, all the incentives disappeared. The incentive to actually put in the work's all gone now. So there's that dopamine addiction. but a lot of people are just talk, and it's a really low capital, low infrastructure. Like with my freezers, my door, my security system, everything set up. It's under 50 grand capital to get it going. And then your ongoings are just electricity and rent. There's really hardly bugger all ongoings. And it's still pushes people. When I talk about all these farm businesses closing, the thing and not making it in the first 2-3 years, the thing we have to realize is that's not a farming specific problem. That's a business reality, and it's the reality, across time, across country, like whatever. What's the rate in Australia, isn't it? It's 19 out of 20 or something just ridiculous. Businesses don't make it after the first 3 years because they can't hack it. So it's not like agriculture is unique in that way, but I do think it is probably more capital hungry than a lot of other businesses can be. And this so the guy in America that's starting up the butchery system has identified that his small farm doesn't have enough produce for the throughput to make it work. So he's setting up a bit of a co-op with all these other farmers that are struggling getting their products to market, and they're all going to set it up together. So you can go in there and you can buy beef from this farm, and chicken from this farm, and eggs from this farm, and it's a real little organic supermarket of everything in the region, and they can all chip in and run it together. So it'll be interesting to see how how it works for them.
Absolutely, yeah, no. Interesting to see how it goes. Hey, that's yeah, good on you. That's such an innovator. That's really cool. So you didn't really, at the beginning, we talked about how you sort of got into farming. And when that moment came when you were like, okay, well, fuck it, I'm going to be a farmer and give this a crack. Can you talk about a little bit about how that took place, in the sense like, what sort of feedback you got from your friends and stuff like that? Were they all sort of saying like, "Oh, Jake's lost it," or what was it? What was that sort of that moment when you're like, "No, I'm going to be a farmer"?
Sure. Well, most of the feedback from friends and family was, "Oh, this is Jake's next thing," because I'm known for hopping from obsession to obsession. Like I used to import guitars and flick them on eBay, and that was a side hustle I had I used to import Rickenbacker guitars and sell them on eBay in Australia because there's no distributor here. And then I used to have a website where I'd buy handmade, one of a kind tobacco pipes, and I'd sell them. And I ran that for years. And I'm a bit of a collector, close to hoarder potentially. Every I see value in everything. I can make anything look like a good business on a piece of paper, whether it's reality or not. And I think people are just like, "Oh, this is Jake's just next obsession, something else that's just got him all wound up and all excited." A few of the businessmen in my family, the first thing they all said was, "Yeah, that all sounds great. What about drought?" Yeah, because you've got to be able to poke the holes in it. And they said, "Yeah, all you hear every drought is how hard every farmer's doing it. Why are you signing up for that?" Which is interesting. It's another conversation to have. But yeah, so that, I guess, no one, I think, took it super seriously. No one thought it was going to be what it is now, not even myself, because when I started, like we own a bicycle shop, my parents and I, in town, with a 7-day-a-week breakfast, lunch, cafe as a part of the building. And I just thought, I'm going to buy some eggs and set up a big X-wing like Joel Salatin and supply all my own eggs. And that was sort of after I had the 20 heifers and the caravan in the paddock, and thought, "Oh, this is fun. I want to do a bit more." Then I built this thing and ordered 600 hens and thought, well, I've got a guaranteed customer. I can sell all the eggs to myself at arm's length. And so people probably thought, "Oh, Jake's just going to put a little bit of his own beef and a little bit of his own eggs through the cafe," which we still do. And the cafe is transformed now. So the cafe is seed oil free. It's all animal fats. It's all our produce. So if you go there and eat, it's our eggs, it's our beef. We don't use honey in almost anything. We don't use sugar in anything. It's all our honey. The deep fries are tallow, beef fat. It's all our produce. That sort of changed the platform there, and it's a big part of, I guess, what we do. But even I probably didn't expect it to become the farm business, quite what it is.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Cool, man. That's so the cafe, yeah. That, I guess you're getting that sort of direct interaction then with the community as well. And are you seeing I don't want to say chicken and the egg sort of thing about that you've sort of caused this, but it's are you seeing the community's demands or like what their expectations, I guess, change as well? Like it come along for this journey, or is that
It's been really hard to rebrand because like we've kept the same name and it's the same fit out and everything, but I guess the brand or the image of the cafe was a complementary business for a bike shop. So we were set up to service the Lycra crowd coming in for their espressos and Anzac biscuits, which we still do heaps of because it's in a bike shop. But then we've rewritten our menu and it's all farm fresh and organic and regenerative and paddock to plate and farm to fork and all this stuff. And, for years, customers that would come in and have breakfast with us 3-4 times a week didn't even realize. They didn't even see it. They were just so used to going through the motions at Cafe Musette that they didn't even realize this whole thing had changed. But new customers that come in definitely notice it and they love it. One of the biggest things for us to change, to be honest with you, was getting rid of seed oils out of our deep fryer and going to animal fats. Because, we believe seed oils are unfit for human consumption. So we wanted to make that transition. But a huge part of our clientele, being a trendy little cafe, was vegans. And, dirty little secret of the hospitality industry is we absolutely love vegans because you can charge them more and plate it for less. You can charge them whatever the meal costs. You can do your satay tofu burger, vegan burger, and it's like a premium burger on your menu, but you put no protein into it. You didn't have to buy the most expensive ingredient, which is beef or whatever it is. So restaurants love vegans for that reason. And, I'm not offensive. I didn't want to alienate people, but so going to tallow on the deep fryer meant that our chips and our hash browns and whatever else we had, sometimes we do deep fried chicken or whatever else, but everything that goes through a fryer is no longer fit for vegan consumption because it's cooked in animal fat. And my wife and I spoke about heaps because my wife runs the cafe, and I said, look, we just need to do what's right for us and our beliefs and our convictions. And if it upsets some vegans because not like they can pick something else on the menu, or there's plenty of businesses around town that really go out of their way to cater for that crowd. Let them have them, and that was a massive step. My wife was quite anxious about it, and almost zero blowback. And all we get instead is all these people just, number one, frothing how good our chips are. We've rapidly built this reputation for just having some of the best chips in Albury, and surprise, surprise, animal fat. and then there's a lot of the health conscious crowd in town that are so appreciative that they can go somewhere and not have to worry about getting a gut full of seed oils. So that was a big step for us. I can't even remember what question you asked, but it sounded like a good answer.
Bloody oath it did, mate. Got me convinced. That was how McDonald's started, wasn't it? With the beef tallow, and then they moved to
That's right.
to the junk. So
yep.
Oh mate, use it. Works obviously. So I'm spewing actually because we came through Albury a couple of months ago and didn't find your place, and I wish I did.
Next
cool, man. Couple more questions, and I'll let you get back to the farm and get out there. Just chucking a little bit of a right turn. We have this sort of concept that we explore on the podcast quite frequently, which is, when we have healthy farmers, we have healthy landscapes essentially. And I'm really interested to then, pick Jalal's brain a bit about this later on, about like the quantum relationship with that. But from your experience, how's that sort of played out? And from what you've seen on other farms with other farmers, is that something that you can sort of confirm in your experience, that healthy farmer, healthy landscape relationship, and how important is that in your life?
Well, I think there is a correlation, for beginners, the values that I hold for my own body and health, by proxy, the same values I put onto my animals and my landscapes. I don't want to be masking symptoms with chemicals in my own health journey. So when I do something on my farm, if there's a something that needs addressing, I don't want to just spray something on it to fix it. I want to approach it the same way. So I guess there's a correlation in terms of like our actions, are manifested from our thoughts and values. But also, it's really hard to put your best foot forward in anything unless you've got a healthy body and mindset. your mental health and your physical health are codependent a lot. Like I know if I eat bad food, and if I went and got that noodle box or something, or whatever it might be, I'm on the couch, digesting, and then your physical health is and your output is slipping, and the farm probably suffers as a relate to that. So that's something I think that they are, and that's across relationships, different businesses. I think your health is important, and the West doesn't do a real good job at addressing that. Like our idea of health now as a culture is hyper athletes and hyper influencers with 8-packs and Brazilian butt lifts and Botox in their lips. Like, health is probably farm fit. Like it's so we've got this on one hand, we've got everyone fat and flabby and chronic, all these chronic diseases, and on the other hand, we've got people like I know a guy in town who's an incredible CrossFit athlete, and watching him on the bars and do all these CrossFit things that he does is incredible. Like, it's something to behold how powerful he is, and this physique that he's built. It's amazing. And I remember having this chat to him, and I said, that swinging you were doing on the bar, on the hoops in the air and all everything, I said, that looked like it was like very violent and not good for your body. He said, oh man, like CrossFit's not good for you. He's like, I am tearing cartilage and ligaments and destroying my body. Like, I do it because I love it, but this isn't, if you want to be the best version of you, this isn't it.
Yeah.
In terms of long-term available health. So I just think as a culture, like, we're all fat, and that's okay, because be true to yourself and don't be fat phobic, and fat people can be healthy too. Like, there's this big online movement that fat people are healthy, which is just a nonsense. And then on the other hand, like, I think, potentially almost too fit, and too obsessed about it. There's something in the middle, which maybe we can coin the term right now. The right level of fit is farm fit, functional fitness, right?
Love it. Yeah. No, beautiful, mate. Are there any techniques or tools that have sort of been, game changing for you in terms of that approach to health? Just food.
There's a few. Like, one of my rules, I'm a meat based diet. I'm not a super strict carnivore, but because I just can't hack that. I love food too much, but I'm meat based, and I've got a few rules. Like, if and this is like when I do my farm tours and explain to people, because you got to meet people where they are and take them on the journey. So if you meet a hyper carnivore, you can start talking to them about Nguni beef, or pasture raised eggs as opposed to caged eggs. But if you're meeting someone who's in a conventional diet, you've got to explain different things to them. So some of the things I talk about is, the quicker the food perishes, the better it is for you. Only buy things, or and you talk about the McDonald's burger that sat on the cabinet with a glass thing over it for 18 years and it looks as beautiful, whatever that story is. You can Google that and find it. If it's on the external wall of the shopping center, it's probably worth eating. Cheese, meat, seafood, dairy, yogurt, cheese. That's what's on the outside, and then inside is all your mee goreng noodles and your Samboys chips or whatever it is. This is going to get so many copyright strikes in 20 years because we just run all these big companies into the ground. So that's another one of the things. And then one of the other things I tell people is, if grandma didn't cook it, or if you can't cook it at home, you shouldn't be eating it. So if you want to what's a good example? If you want to render lard so you can grill your eggs in animal fat in the morning, or if you want to make ghee or tallow, that's super simple. Those animal fats for us at home are a byproduct of roasting a steak, or roasting a roast or grilling a steak. You have the animal fats in the pan, you tip it in a jar, and then later on you scoop it out, you use that. If you want to create canola oil for your kitchen for your own use, like you can buy it off the shelf. If you want to make it at home, you're going to have such a complex industrialized system in your kitchen that if the police came over to visit you, they're going to arrest you for cooking meth like on Breaking Bad. You can't do it. So if you can't make it at home, or if grandma didn't make it at home, you probably shouldn't eat it either. But then I've got some other rules for my own personal health outside of diet. I don't drink alcohol if I'm feeling mad, bad, or sad. So I'll have a drink, I'll have a few beers, or I had a mate come over the other night. We'll talk about homeschooling. We got on the margaritas, had a fun night. But if I'm feeling mad, bad, or sad. So it's not a crutch. It's not something I come home stressed and oh my God, I need to have 4 beers because today was just so bad, because that's a path to addiction. Yeah, the other thing I do is I write this job list. I do them almost daily, and it's called an Eisenhower matrix. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but you get a piece of paper, you split it into 4 quadrants, and it's hard to explain, I guess, without seeing it. But in the first column, you write at the top important, and then on the second half of the page, you write not important. And then on your 2 rows, because you've split it into 4 boxes, on this side, you write urgent, and then down underneath it, you write not urgent. So you end up with 4 different quadrants. You have important, urgent. Then you have not important, but urgent.
Yeah.
Then you have important, not urgent, and not important, not urgent. So like this is a bit wordy because it's hard to follow. But if people just Google Eisenhower matrix, they can look at this while I'm talking about it. And then you write down your jobs in those quadrants. So I'll be writing down all the things I need to address, and some are both urgent and important. So they just get prioritized. And then some are not important and not urgent, but there's still a job to get done. So they're a job that you delegate. You don't do it. You pass it on to the staff. You ask your wife if she can help you. If you don't have people you manage and family to share the workload, that just becomes a next week job. Rip it up, get rid of it. Not important. Like it's, what might that be? Anyway, you'll come up with it. Buy new shoes for the kids because the soles are starting to come off. It's not really urgent. It's not really important. It's we can do it next week. There's other that we need to get chicken feed out to the chickens first. There's that sick cow with a limp we need to get in the yards. That's urgent and important. And that for me, really, because I've got so many. Like I've got we got all the different enterprises on the farm. I still run the bike shop and the cafe, which is a 40 staff business. My dad's pretty crook at the moment, so I'm running a few of his property developments and family business there, and there's a lot going on. So to keep my sanity in check, and the biggest thing for me is I don't feel good mentally unless I'm feeling effective. And having a job list that's organized that you can march through every day helps me feel effective. So I just find that Eisenhower matrix super helpful.
Mate, that's a game changer. I'll be checking that out, and I think that's so pertinent to all farmers and to everyone in life. If you're not effective and you're not feeling effective, at least, you don't have a real sense of purpose, do you? So, mate, that's I'm just so grateful for everything you've shared with us today, and you've really dropped some bloody gold nuggets in there. So I'm hoping the listeners got a lot out of it as well, mate. Just one last one. I just want to get a bit of a feel for where you're headed next, and then what your real priorities are. What are you focusing on?
Well, we've just opened up our website to shipping boxes into Melbourne to scale our business, and we're working on freight up to Sydney and Canberra at the moment. Processing and freight logistics are my 2 biggest bottlenecks, especially because we touch everything frozen. Freight becomes a little bit harder. But we really want to scale our business. I don't want to be, the first year we did 2 pigs, and this year we're going to do about 350. But I don't want to do 350 pigs in 5 years' time. I want to do 5,000 pigs, because the more pigs we get into our systems, the more pigs that are being treated better, the more landscapes we're restoring, and the more great quality food we're delivering to people. And I think that we need some scale in this industry. Like I completely love and appreciate the idea that we need more little farms. We also need more better big farms. So one of the things that I'm working on to help facilitate my growth into that is we're onboarding local producers who are value driven. So for the first 3.5, 4 years of our journey, I was extremely dogmatic that if you purchased a piece of meat or produce off us, it came from our property under our management. That's a great story and stuff, but I think it's a little bit selfish and arrogant. I've got a bit of a knack for sales and fixing problems that farmers don't want to deal with. But there's great farmers out there. Like I've just partnered with a family, the Darlow family, up at Lankeys Creek. They're an hour out of Albury. They don't use chemicals. They're great landscape managements. They've been doing it for generations, but they're not interested in selling a bag of mince and a carton of eggs. So I've had chats with them. I've audited them. I'd feed their food to my family. I'm really comfortable with, the level of stewardship they give to their animals and land. So we've onboarded them as a producer, and that's going to help us scale as we go direct to market. So there are a couple of the things I'm working on at the moment is being able to ship to more areas. And then I can scale chickens. I could order another 1,000 chickens and have them ready to go onto dinner plates in 45, 50 days. To breed another cow and finish it, I need another hectare, and I need 2 years to breed it, get the baby and fatten it. So I'm partnering with other local farmers to solve their issues, and also meet the market, just trying to give customers what they want.
Yeah. Awesome, mate. I'll tell you what, the bloody regen ag food industry is bloody lucky to have you, mate. And really looking forward to seeing what you create in these next years to come, and how you scale. And just props to you, mate. Good stuff. So do you want to just rattle off where people can find you again, mate, just in case they didn't catch it at the start?
Sure. Well, wolkifarm.com.au. We ship all over Australia for our stable products, dehydrated pet treats, honey, lard, tallow, that sort of thing. It's just Melbourne and Albury regional for fresh, frozen at the moment, but we're hoping to open Canberra and Sydney. Definitely by 2024 it'll be open, because if I can't find a courier by then, I'm just going to start sending my truck up there. But I think I'm pretty close. And Twitter at Jake Wolki, or Facebook at Wolki Farm. They're probably the 3 best spots to find me.
You beauty, mate. Hey, Jake, thanks again, mate. Just bloody blown away. Great stuff.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you.